right, Ron, we're good to go? All right, good morning and welcome to 2024 World Dairy Expo, and this is the last of the virtual tours that are offered at this year's show. And talk about ending on a high note. What we have in store for you today is an exciting and also very educational and informative session featuring a family that is well known throughout Northeast Wisconsin for having what I would say one of the most beautiful farms that you could drive by in the state of Wisconsin. And you're going to get an inside look behind the scenes at this family, their farm, as well as some of the things that they have done to take their farm from good to great with the help of Paulie Paul and his team from Complete Management Consulting. I'm Peggy Coffeen, host of the Up-Level Dairy Podcast. I've had the privilege of working with Paulie and also the family to tell their stories throughout the Up-Level Dairy Podcast. And I'll be facilitating this conversation today to guide you through step by step the story and the work that's being done on this farm to take their family to the next level and into the future. And so with that, I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about our format for today. So we will be showing you videos of some of the highlights of this operation, and in between those videos, open up for some questions and some answers, and we'll move through that process as well as building in some Q&A at the end of the hour that we have with you in the room today. So thank you for taking the time out of your morning to join us here for this virtual tour of Woldt Farms LLC. And I'd like to have Kelsey from the Woldt family take a moment to recognize her family members that are here up in this front row. There are many of them. You'll see multiple generations. And Kelsey, I'll let you introduce your family. And please, if you guys would, go ahead, stand up, turn around, and just give a quick wave to our crowd today that is here to see you and hear from your family. Oh,
yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Cool. I'm Courtney Woldt, and my sisters are Kristen, who's married to Paul, and they have little Grady here, and then Kayla, and there's Carly, fiance Skylar, and then Bryce is my fiance.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Woldt family, for joining us today and allowing us to tell your story. And we forgot to introduce the adopted son up here as well.
We are also here with our dairy manager, Jeff Evenson, and his wife, Kayla.
Wonderful. And yes, thank you. And the gentleman in the Navy here, Paulie Paul, go ahead and just take a moment to introduce yourself and your team that's in the room with us today.
So I'm Paulie Paul, owner of Complete Management Consulting. In the room with me today is Amanda Stoutinger. And we do the consulting for the Woldt Farms.
All right, excellent. And to help you get to know a little bit about Woldt Farms LLC and their story, we have a lovely video where we're going to walk you through that. So enjoy.
Hi, I am Daryl Woldt, and I would like to welcome you to our dairy farm. Woldt Farms was started in 1911 by my great-grandfather, Herman Woldt. When I was growing up, I remember my dad milking 32 cows on this farm. Amy and I took over the farm from my parents, Hugo and Jeanette, in 1990. At that time, we expanded to 80 cows. Over the years, our family has made many additions to the farm, and currently we milk 1,650 cows.
Hi, I am Amy Woldt. Daryl and I have 5 daughters. Daryl is the 4th generation on the farm, and our daughters, Kelsey, Kayla, Kristen, Carly, and Courtney are the 5th generation.
Our cows live in temperature-controlled barns, so they are never too hot. We have sprinkler systems that spray water onto the cows' backs and fans to move air over the cows, which results in keeping the cows cool in warm weather. Our cows have deep bedded stalls to help with cow comfort. We also have SCR collars on them, which are very similar to the Fitbits and Apple Watches we wear every day. These collars monitor the health of the cow, and our computers alert us if something is wrong with the cow, and we can help her immediately if she isn't feeling well. Our cows are milked once every 8 hours. This produces about 146,000 pounds of milk each day. Our milk gets sold to Belgioioso, and we have our own milk tankers to deliver it. We are hauling 3 loads of milk each day. Belgioioso then processes our milk into fresh mozzarella, ricotta, and other specialty cheeses.
On our 4,000 acres, we mainly grow haylage, grass, and corn for silage. When the weather allows, we also grow triticale, winter wheat, sorghum, and other cover crops. Not only do these crops help to keep our own livestock fed, but we also sell it to other farms that want to feed it to their animals as well. Over the last few years, we have focused on planting cover crops, and many of those acres are no-tilled to corn. This is very important to soil health as it helps to reduce soil loss from rainfall and increase soil organic matter, which leads to improvement in soil structure. We apply most of our manure during the growing season to crops such as triticale, sorghum, fescue grasses, and alfalfa, so that these crops can utilize the nutrients immediately and grow to the best of their ability.
Our business is quite diversified as we do custom manure hauling, custom fieldwork, and trucking. We have a full lineup of manure equipment including an irrigation boat, irrigation equipment, and semi-takers to move our manure as well as manure for several other farms in the area. We also have a large variety of machinery for harvesting, tillage, trucking, bagging, and excavation that we use on our farm, and also provide these custom services to others.
Woldt's Farm Store opened in 2022. We wanted to give our community a place to come and shop for locally grown beef, and what better place than directly on the farm. In the store, we have a variety of local products ranging from beef, pork, cheese, milk, candles, honey, wines and spirits, and so much more. This store is extra special to us as it was previously used as our Grandpa Hugo Woldt's old workshop. He spent many hours in there fixing equipment and coming up with innovative ideas.
We owe a lot to our employees. We have a very special and hardworking crew here. They have helped us to get where we are today. They put in long hours to get jobs done, and we are very grateful to have all of them working here. The mission statement created by our parents in 1998 still holds true today. Woldt Farms is a family-owned business that strives to produce quality products and provides reliable custom services. We desire to run a profitable business that provides motivation and growth opportunities for our family and employees.
And that is an introduction and a snapshot to Woldt Family Farms. And we will in just a moment get to know a little bit about Paul and Complete Management Consulting, the work that they've been doing here. But before we jump into those aspects of farm management, I want to just shine a really special spotlight on the 2 young ladies that are up in front of you right now, Kelsey and Courtney, because each of you are extremely passionate about areas of the farm, and we just saw a glimpse of that with the farm store. So would you like to just take a moment and tell us, why was it important for you to have this on the farm right there in Brillion, Wisconsin? He's got you. We got you? Nope. Do we need it? Do you want to switch? Should we swap that out?
So it was important for us, there we go, because during COVID we realized it was a huge demand for beef where people knew where it was coming from. They wanted to know where it was being raised, what it was being fed. So we saw that as an opportunity to take our animals and not only sell them by wholes, halves, and quarters, but also to be able to sell them by the cut too.
And you've been able to actually incorporate other local products made right in your area in the store as well, right?
Yeah, so we kind of reached out to people that we knew were making honey or maple syrups, kind of like that, anyone who had a unique product to sell, and we were able to help them not only bring more light to their product, but also give them a spot to sell it as well.
Yes, thank you. And so that's just a little bit of a snapshot into the farm store, and we can include that in our Q&A later on. But Kelsey, also, you're very passionate about the conservation practices and the cropping side. Would you like to just share a few of those highlights?
So about 95% of our ground is no-till and cover crop. We feel that this is very important. It helps put nitrogen into the soil, and it helps with soil erosion. And we have been doing that since 2020.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So reaching the public, diversifying conservation practices, that's all part of the culture and what's built into Woldt Family Farms. But also what we'll speak to next is the commitment that your family has of operating at a high level in every aspect of the business. And that is where this relationship with Pauly and Complete Management Consulting, and also with our manager here, Jeff, has really been able to take the dairy side of Woldt Family Farms to a new level. So now what we're going to do is give you a little glimpse into what that looks like with the work of Complete Management Consulting at this dairy.
When we first contacted Pauly, our goal was to make our operation more efficient, more profitable, whether that be in the milking parlor, herd health side, financial side, wherever his insights that we could use. Our biggest shortfalls when Pauly started here was our parlor was maxed out at 1,400 cows. We couldn't get any more cows through it. Our herd health side, we were just having a lot of fresh cow problems. No matter what we did, it seemed like we couldn't quite get over the hill. And after we had brought Pauly and his crew in here, we changed some stuff around with the routine in the parlor, and we're able to actually get 200 more cows through the parlor per shift without increasing labor or anything. We had to add the cows. And the herd health side, we went from treating roughly 40% of the cows, now we're probably treating about 5% cows. What I think sets Complete Management Consulting apart from other consultants is their boots on the ground. They don't just sit behind the computer and pull up a report and say, hey, why is this? They pull up the report, but then they come out in the barn, go in the pen, interact with the employees that are dealing with those problems to see, hey, what are your thoughts? This is what we've seen over the years, being on different farms. How do you guys do it here? They have the hard discussions with you. Not everything works the same on every farm, so they're really good at finding what works best for your farm. Truthfully, you always want to get more. You want to be more efficient, you want more pounds of milk, you want more pounds of fat and protein, but right now where we're sitting, we're good right where we are now. It would be nice to eventually one day keep gradually, going up so we can be, 110 pound herd and 7.5 pounds CFP. Ultimately, one day that's where we'd like to be.
So continual improvement and the pursuit of greatness. That's what we hear in this story today of Woldt Farms and the work that has been done in conjunction with Complete Management Consulting. And your ears might have picked up a few key things in what Jeff just shared in that video. And one of those key things is the efficiencies in the milking parlor, being able to run 200 cows more per hour through the parlor. And if you're wondering the how to make that happen, we're going to give you another little insight through the video and then offer up an opportunity to ask these guys some questions on that as well. So here is a little insight into how that all happened.
Our biggest shortfalls when Pauly started here was our parlor was maxed out at 1,400 cows. We couldn't get any more cows through it. The improvements that we made in the parlor, we were able to streamline the prep routine. Originally we were doing, we'd dip them, we'd strip them, wipe them, and we'd go down the whole line and do that. But then after Pauly came in, basically the guys just do a big circle. They go down, do one thing, come back, do another thing, just keep doing that until the cows are on. And with minor changes, I believe that's what helped us get more cows through the parlor and able to be done in the time frame that we need them to be done. We went from 5.4 turns per hour in the parlor. Today we are doing 7.2. And we're able to actually get 200 more cows through the parlor per shift without increasing labor or anything. We had to add the cows. With being able to get more cows through the parlor, we were able to increase our milk output total as a farm without raising our labor costs 1 penny. So we were able to produce more milk with the same amount of employees, and ultimately, that's what efficiency is.
All right, more milk with the same amount of employees. And I'm going to stop right here and first of all, see if are there any questions coming through from our audience that you have for Jeff and Polly on this particular piece of their story? Go ahead and raise your hands if you have questions, and we can make sure that we get those addressed. Anybody questions on this particular topic? All right, well, I'm going to ask you to share a few more details. So Jeff, you touched on the process as it is today, the protocol in the milking parlor, and just that streamlining that you now are doing to really yield those efficiencies. But take us back before. What did parlor prep and protocol look like before Paulie and his team came to the dairy?
So before Paulie and his team came to the dairy in the parlor, we would do each individual cow, we'd dip them and then strip them and then wipe them, go down, do all 8 cows like that and come back and then put them all on. And after Paulie had came, then he put his insights in on what he sees on other farms. And then we changed it around where we'll start at the front, go down, do all the dipping, come back, do all the stripping of the milk, come back, do all the wiping, and the guys are basically just doing a big circle the whole time now. And truthfully, that's all we changed in the parlor, was that simple, just those minor steps.
And that allowed you to get 200 cows more per day through and not increase any labor.
Nope.
But at the same time increase milk production and, of course, the income that comes with that. And Paulie, I'm going to have Jeff pass the mic to you. This is something that you do on a lot of dairies, is to help look at those areas where efficiencies can be improved. And the parlor is where you often start your work, correct?
Correct. We always try to look in the parlor immediately because that's basically where all your income's coming from. So if we find an opportunity in that parlor where we can get more income out of it, that's going to be the easiest way to make the improvements and help your cash flow. But we also look at all the other aspects of the dairy, see what's going on throughout the dairy with all the labor, see if we can make things more efficient, try to reduce labor and reduce your expenses also.
Excellent. All right. Now we're going to go on to one of the next areas that Paulie and his team were able to hone in on and hear how that's looked on the repro and fresh cow health side.
On the repro side, Paulie and his group were able to help us pinpoint some areas where, hey, we got to focus in on this a little more, or, the whys on some of the results we were getting weren't necessarily where we wanted them. So over time, we've been able to hone in on our program, just be more religious with the shots and getting the semen in the cows at the right times. Ultimately, our goal was to get our conception higher while also getting our preg rate higher too in the same sense. Before Paulie was in, that was hard to do with all the cows we were treating for metritis or cows we were treating for ketosis. It just delayed them from getting the start that they truly needed to get pregnant right away. And now, without having to do all those treatments, the cows are able to get pregnant a lot quicker. The quicker we get the cows pregnant, the more financially better off we are as a farm, because these cows aren't getting 300 days of milk and they're not pregnant yet. Our overall preg rate of the herd has gone up about 3 to 4% since Paulie started coming here. Conception, maybe a point or two better. We were pretty good beforehand. It was just trying to get us to that next level. One aspect on our breeding program that we have done is we use beef on dairy. We produce the amount of Holstein heifers that we need to sustain our herd size. So we're able to utilize the beef on dairy because those calves are worth more on the ground on a day old than they typically would be. So we're able to bring in more income for the farm without really adding any cost onto the farm. Overall, the efficiency of the breeding program, gaining that 3 or 4 points in that preg rate, I believe has been tremendous for us as a farm.
Excellent. And as you might have noticed from the video, Jeff, you do the ultrasound at the dairy, correct? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what value that has brought for you to have the ability to do that? And was Polly a part of training you guys up for that as well?
So we originally, before we had started doing ultrasounding, we were just doing a regular 39-day preg check, giving them a GnRH, and then going off of that. I had the interest of wanting to better myself and also better the farm with doing in-house ultrasounding. So whereas before we'd lock the cows up, give the shots, mark them, and then the vet would come later in the day and we'd have to lock them up again and then go through and do that. Now we go through once a week on Monday mornings. We'll give the shots and we'll preg check them right away. So every week we took about an hour and a half of lockup time off of the day for the cows to be stuck at the bunk waiting for us. So that was ultimately one of our main purposes of doing it, and also, you know, to save money on the dairy side by being able to do it ourselves.
Yeah. And what difference did it make to be able to reduce that hour and a half of lockup time?
For people and cows, it was a lot nicer.
And okay, so you mentioned also the reduction in treatments of fresh cows. So walk us through a little bit, you know, kind of the before and after. What did fresh cow protocol look like in the past, and what does it look like now?
So the fresh cow protocol really hasn't changed too much, but when Paulie started with us, our fresh cows were right behind the parlor. Closest to the parlor, but also the loudest part in the barn. And one of the first moves that we did was we took the fresh cows and put them in a different barn where it's a lot quieter and the cows could just be themselves. And it seems like outside of, you know, with that minimal change of just moving the cows to a different barn, I think that's been a tremendous reason on why we have so few cow treatments now.
Yeah, thank you. And Polly, can you build on that? Tell us a little bit about your work in general with Woldt's and other dairies, of how a move like that, just changing the location of that area of fresh cows, can be a game changer.
So yeah, there's a lot of dairies we get to. The fresh cow pen is obviously the pen that gets the most attention on the dairy. And what I find on a lot of dairies is I'll see a lot of dairies that are overstaffed with the herds people, and they're spending a lot of extra time with those cows. So lock times are excessive. Just walking those pens, people just being in with those cows more often than they really need to be. So I see a lot more stuff being done with those cows than what really needs to be done. A lot of times I tell people, let's leave those cows be cows, let them alone, let them eat, drink, lay down. You know, we can walk the pens and I try to train them a little bit on how to identify sick cows. So rather than locking, temping, and doing all this hands-on stuff, let's do a little more visual IDing these cows so we're not creating more sick cows. What I find a lot of times is by locking them excessively and messing with them, you end up creating more sick cows. So you're keeping those cows from laying down, you're keeping them from water. I've seen, you know, people lock fresh cows for an hour, and then when you unlock them, there's maybe 3 waters in a pen. You might get 3 cows drinking at one point in time, the rest of the cows all go lay down. So you're restricting them from water and, you know, potentially some lay down time. So by doing some of that stuff, you know, and I think on Woldt's, like Jeff had said before, one of the keys was to get that pen of cows away from all that activity. They came from the quietest barn in the facility and had their calf, and then got moved right into a pen that had a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of chaos, basically, you know, at the back end of the holding area, and we ended up moving them back into that barn where they just came from, and I think the environment was a big deal, and also, you know, I think they're doing a little better job on the nutrition end of things with those cattle now too. So I think altogether that made a big difference.
All right, and questions from our audience here with us today. Anything that you'd like to know based on what you've been hearing about these improvements, whether it was what we were hearing on the parlor side or this efficiency side with working with fresh cows and with repro as well. Anybody have any questions they'd like to shoot out to Paulie, Jeff, or anyone up here yet? All right, well, don't be shy. We'll give you more opportunities for that Q&A as we continue to move on. And let's take a peek at another layer of Woldt family, or Woldt Farms, where we've been able to make some improvements.
Some of the biggest changes with employee efficiency since Paulie and his crew have been here, we've done a lot of cross-training on the guys. So the guys know how to do more than one thing. You know, they're not just here to pull calf. The maternity guy is also in charge of pushing up the feeds, feeding the calves, giving the milkers a break so they can have a break during their shift, which we think is part of what's brought the morale up, so they can have a little time to relax or collect themselves so they can go back in and still give us 100% for the full 7.5 hours it takes us to milk. They've helped us train the guys to be overall a better employee for yourself and for the farm too, so we don't have to go hire another employee to do this job. You know, we can have you step in, do it, be more efficient for us as a farm. In return, you know, you'll be able to make more money because you're more valuable, you're more efficient. Just by doing those simple things, the work culture is just 100 times different now. Once a month, I try to meet with all the employees in the barn just to go through some areas where we need to improve, you know, what we're doing good at, any thoughts or questions from those guys, to really make them feel like their opinion matters, they're valued. Treat them like they're human beings. They're not just here to make money, they're here to help the whole farm just prosper. It seems like the culture has gotten a lot more optimistic, a lot more positive. They communicate with each other better, they joke around with each other, they enjoy coming to work, whereas before it was, some days it was everyone for themselves. Woldt Farms now, I would say, is a place where we're getting people that want to show up and work here. You know, we don't have to go hanging posters around town looking for people to come work here. It's just word of mouth, and a couple of my guys have said, hey, you know, I've been talking to some of my buddies, and you know, they're hoping one day they can get a job here, because we try to truly value our employees here at the farm, just to make them feel like they're valued.
Excellent. And one of the most common challenges a lot of dairies face is the struggle of turnover. And so, Jeff, was that something that you were dealing with a few years back?
Yes, our turnover was moderately high on the barn side. Now, I believe in the last year, we have had to train 2 or 3 new people in the last year.
Mm. Yeah, so significant difference. What difference has that made for you as a manager?
I know they're going to show up every day, so I don't have to worry that they're not going to show up and quit, and just gives the normal guys, you know, more time to do their job to the best that they can, instead of having to take time, train people, and you know, the normal stuff of having new people start working with you.
Yeah, So it made your life a little bit easier not having to train and retrain constantly?
Yeah. I'm not scared to look at my phone.
Well, that's huge, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a huge improvement. And Polly, I want you to take a few minutes and just shine some light on the work that you and your team do, specifically first at Woldt, for just kind of an ongoing touch point with employees for regular employee training and just to keep this progress and momentum moving forward.
So one of the things we did notice when we started with Woldt was the employees were all pretty much trained to their areas. And I think what Jeff had said in the video here is the cross-training. I think I see this on a lot of dairies where people are designated as, you know, maybe a maternity person or maybe a herds person, and they don't interact with the milkers. The milkers are probably one of the most important employees on the farm getting their job done, and I think it's important to have some interaction amongst all the employees and having multiple people cross-trained to do other jobs. And by doing that, you can eventually look at some positions and, you know, maybe eliminate some employees because you can tighten things up a little bit. You know, like just having a maternity guy sitting in the maternity area all day long really doesn't make sense. That person needs to be like you're doing now, having them push feed or you know, giving relief time to the other milkers. Things like that I think are very important, and I see in a lot of dairies that isn't being utilized, and I think it's something that needs to be done, especially if you are having some turnover, just getting through that. So if one person doesn't show up during a shift, now everybody's cross-trained. They can work together and try to get that covered if somebody doesn't show up. So that's something we really focus on all our dairies, on how to be more efficient, how to cross-train. Scott, one of my employees, is the one that does a lot of the hands-on stuff with Jeff on the farm, and he is bilingual, so he's great at going through the parlor, working with everybody, and as an ongoing thing that we do with many of our farms is we'll check in once a month, maybe twice a month. We have some dairies that we check in once a week and just check with all the employees, make sure everything's fine. If there's any issues, we address them. Sometimes we give homework to the managers and we tell them, hey, here's an area that we see that needs to be taken care of, and here's how, you know, we need to get through those steps. I'll be back next week. We're gonna look at, you know, how the progression went, and those are just some things that we do on a lot of dairies right now.
Yeah. Kelsey, I'm going to ask you to share a little bit on this topic as well, because you've done a lot of work in creating a handbook and policies for employees. So this is kind of where all these pieces come together, right? There's the boots on the ground and this training that Paulie and his team have been able to assist Jeff with, and Scott from Paulie's team works closely to do that. But Kelsey, you have really taken ownership of this area of building out the handbook and those resources to have a standardized process. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in the past, we've never really had like a proper way to let people know what we're all about on our farm and what we expect from the employees and what they can expect from us. So this past winter, I sat down and created a handbook along with an onboarding folder. So when we hire someone new, they get this handbook and some other information about the farm so they know what to expect.
And can you go into a little more detail? Let's start with the handbook. What's in the handbook?
So in the handbook, it's an introduction about our farm, a little bit about the history, some policies that we have, cell phone usage, breaks, when they can expect their paychecks. Trying to think of what else. Holidays, because farms are 24/7, so you have to be expected to work holidays. Yes. And yeah.
And this is for not just the team at the dairy, but also through the multiple sides of the business, correct?
Yep, so it's expected that new hires on both the dairy and the shop side, crop side, would get this onboarding folder.
Yeah, so I just want to talk about this for a moment in a little bit more depth, because again, this is something that I think is a growth area for a lot of dairies, especially as you're bringing in more employees and looking at how can we create this onboarding process, onboarding program. A couple things that you touched on was a cell phone policy. So what does that look like at Woldt Farms?
So obviously no cell phones are allowed when people are driving equipment and semis. And then in the barns, we don't want people on their phones either. We want them to be paying attention to their surroundings. They can have their phones on them in case of emergency, but we don't want to see them texting or playing on it.
Yeah, and also you mentioned in the handbook that there is clear expectations set for when you receive paychecks and those sort of things. So prior to having this all laid out, written out, and in a format that you could give a new employee, was this one of those things that like Jeff would be constantly bombarded with, or you'd be constantly bombarded with those questions? Was that kind of what was happening that led you to create something that you could just hand over that was all clear and expectations were laid out?
Yeah, so my mom handles all the payroll on the farm, and there was just some confusion about when the pay period ended than when people got their actual paychecks. So now with having this handbook where it's all laid out, I think it's a lot more clear on what people can expect, and if there's an issue, they can refer to the handbook, and if the handbook doesn't have the answer, then they can go and ask my parents or Jeff about it.
Yeah, so Jeff, when you think about your role as a manager and we bringing in the work that Kelsey has done to standardize processes, the way that Polly and Scott have been able to empower you and give you the tools for improved management, what difference has it made for your day-to-day?
The biggest difference I've seen is a lot less worrying if the job's going to get done, our guy's going to show up. Do they know what they're doing? Are they able to do what we're asking them to do? You know, all those worries outside of when someone, you know, gets let go or leaves voluntarily. I don't have to worry about that stuff anymore.
Yeah, so made your life a little bit easier?
Yes.
And if you wouldn't mind also sharing the three of you on this one, you do have members of the team that speak Spanish. So do you speak Spanish, or how are you handling the language barrier that exists on your dairy and so many dairies?
So I speak very little Spanish, but we have, of the 18 barn employees, I believe, we have 9 or 10 of them that are bilingual and speak pretty good English. So we have our main guy who moderates the meetings that we have monthly with the guys, and then, I mean, if so-and-so doesn't feel comfortable with the main guy translating, he'll just go grab one of the other guys that can translate.
Google Translate has also been a great tool that we use if we need to convert a document, or if we do have to communicate with an employee where a bilingual employee isn't there to help. Google Translate really helps overcome that issue.
And when you put the policies together, did you put those in Spanish also?
Yep, so we have an English handbook and a Spanish handbook.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. All right. And we've covered these highlighted areas in our presentation today. We just touched on the employee efficiency side and employee management. We've talked about improvements in milking parlor and overall efficiency, as well as cow health and reproduction. And now I really want to just open it up for questions from those of us that are live here with us today at this virtual tour at World Dairy Expo. And so any questions that you might have on those particular areas we've covered, or for those in the room that might be looking at doing some things that are diversified in their operation. That's why we have Kelsey and Courtney up here as well, because they can shine some light and experience on what your multiple businesses look like, and especially that on-farm store, as more and more dairies are looking at how can we engage in the community and bring that diversity. So audience here, what questions do you have for Jeff, Polly, Kelsey, or Courtney today? Yes, sir. Steve in the back.
I guess I've got a question for either Jeff or Polly. Just wondering if you could mention what your production is right now, cows with components, and if you could compare it to what it was when Polly first started. I understand it's also more about, it's all about efficiency, not necessarily all about milk production. Just kind of wondering if you saw some improvements in that respect since Polly started working with the
All right.
operation.
Thank you, Steve. And I'm going to repeat that question so that those that are watching on Expo TV that are watching you live right now can hear it as well. So, Steve, what you were asking is for any improvements or changes in production and components that have been related to the changes that went alongside with efficiency.
So pre-Paulie's arrival, we were about 87, 88 pounds with 3.8 butter fat and 3.0 protein. Now we're right around a 4.1 butter fat with a 3.15 protein and 90 to 92 we bounce around with on the milk.
Excellent. Anything you would like to add to that, Paulie?
Well, I think you said it well. I think, yeah, with the efficiencies, especially with the fresh cows, they should be able to get off to a little bit better start, not having to deal with all the treatments and all the metabolic issues they had beforehand. So I think in the long term, that's going to be more of a benefit there.
Absolutely. And I saw another hand, I believe, over in this area. Yes.
So
All right. Do you mind if I restate that for those that are live? So what the question is how many years ago did the idea start? What did it take to bring it to fruition? And are you doing milk and or other products directly from the farm, correct?
So we kind of always had the idea of doing a farm store in like the back of our mind, but when I was in college in I think 21, I was interning at Feltz's Dairy Store in Stevens Point, and they were kind of just telling me all about how to run the business, how to get started. So that fall, we started clearing out the shop that it's in, and we started going down and asking questions to Dad Cap, kind of seeing what license we needed. And then by spring, Memorial Day weekend, we actually opened and started selling product. So the only products that come from the farm are the beef, and then me and my sisters do some of the clothing options and some of like the crafts that we have in there. But we actually get the milk and like the cheese curds from a small micro dairy in Freedom, and then a lot of the cheese and other products come from other dairies.
Go ahead.
In the future, maybe that's something that we will do, but just starting out, that's a lot of work and a lot of more license to get to be able to bottle our own milk and make our own cheese. So that's definitely something we might think about in the future, but right now we have to outsource that.
And Courtney, you had mentioned that the early stages of building out the concept of the farm store involved going to the Department of Agriculture and looking at what permits and regulations that you would have to comply with. What did you learn? What were some of the requirements and permits that you had to obtain to be able to sell products of any sort on the farm?
Yeah, so we really only needed a seller's permit, and then we wanted to be able to sell some spirits and wines, so I did have to get a alcohol license, and that's pretty much all we need because we're not cutting anything or we're not rebottling anything in our store. But if we were to do that, we would need to get a commercial kitchen. That's also something we've kind of talked about and might be something we do in the future.
Excellent, thank you. And does that answer your question? Any more that you'd like to know about the store on the farm there? No. Awesome, great. Okay, other questions from our audience? Go ahead and raise a hand and we'll be sure to address those. Yes, sir, in the white here. All right, and I'll repeat that question have there been any issues or challenges finding housing for employees, and how are you overcoming that challenge?
Yeah, that seems to be a hot commodity when someone comes to the farm. They want employee housing. We've always had a house just up the road from our farm, and we actually like 5 or so years ago, we tore that one down and built a new one that more people could live in. And so we have that house along with 2 other houses for employees. So we're doing pretty well when it comes to employee housing.
So you own the houses or rent them?
The farm owns the houses, and then we rent them out to the employees.
I see, okay. And so along with that, do you oversee then the property management of the homes?
Yep, my mom takes care of running those properties.
Excellent, excellent. Is that answering your question? Yeah, so they're owning farms or owning homes right on the farm and close to the farm. And when people come to work for you, you said that that's part of what they're looking for, correct?
Yeah, a lot of the people when they come to the farm, they don't have anything to their name, so a house or a place to live is a big draw for them.
And speak to, just for a moment, to just kind of set the stage for what your community looks like. So you're near Brillion, Wisconsin, a smaller town, rural area. Are there a lot of other options for housing?
Yeah, we live like 30 minutes both to Appleton and Green Bay, so there are options, but it seems like a lot of people want to live closer to the farm because it's just nice being close to where you work.
And Jeff appreciates that employees are close by also? All right, more questions from our audience? I thought I saw a hand in the back. Yes, in the black there. Sure, all right. Yeah, so question is looking at the slide that we have up, this aerial shot of Woldt Farms, and if you could tell us what the buildings are for and a little bit of that flow. And Kelsey, it looks like you are... You can tag team it, guys. You can tag. Oh, wait, would you like a pointer? Is that a pointer? Oh, look at that. Okay. Be careful where you point this thing. It's the green button. It's that little up and down line. And then just turn there.
So these 3 barns are our freestall barns. This is our newest, most recent barn that we built in 2016. It's a tunnel ventilated barn. Curtains are on the ends here and on the sides right there. This barn has our parlor in right there where the pointer is. Back here used to be where our fresh cows were, but now we've moved them into this barn. We have, in this barn is all transition cows basically. We'd have our fresh cows right here on this side. Across the alley would be the far off. And then the pre-fresh and maternity areas in this barn. These are 2 of the older style barns now. The 2 stories used for storage, and the one next to it we house our beef that we grow for the farm store. There's the house right there. This is the farm store, which used to be Grandpa's shop. This is our current shop. This is just a building that we store our bags and plastic in, because we also have WW bagging and plastic sales too that we run. This is just a storage shed out here. All the piles covered with tires. Commodity shed. This farm right here is not part of our farm at all. The manure, so this first pit right here captures all our runoff and leachate from the feed pad. Then we have these 2 manure pits right here that are continuously being used, and then this is a offline manure pit that we can, if we need to, we can pump into it if we can't get into the fields, or if we proceed with expansions in the future, we already have our manure pits dug and permitted for what they need to be. To get the manure out of the barn, right about right there, there's a pump, and underneath, underground, we have a pipe. I believe it's 12 inches. 12-inch line that runs right on the outside of barns here, comes up on the outside, and then it runs straight down the center of the barn. We have the option, it can either be continuously running, or we could scale it back so it doesn't run as fast, or we can set it up on a timer so it only runs at certain times of the day. Once it gets to the end of the barn here, we have 2 pumps right here that pump it up to this manure pit here. And then over time it settles out in this pit, turns more water into this pit, and then we use it. Just so we're never really adding any clean water to our manure pit.
Excellent. Does that answer your question? Do you want to maybe just speak to a moment, there's a pretty close proximity, as you may have noticed, between your neighboring farm and the farm there. So where is that line?
See if I can do this right.
There you go, look at
This
that.
grass patch right here. Wow, sorry, I'm shaky.
It's that broken finger that you have.
Goes down here, and then straight out to the road. So this field right here we own. The woods we own. This field we run, this field they own. There's the woods over here that they're part owners on. Surprisingly, this is actually our grass field right here.
All right, so that's a little bit of the aerial view and oversight of the layout of this farm. And it's kind of neat when you really look at this photo, because you can see so much of the original heritage of the Woldt family, and that is that beautiful house right there, the original farmstead with that barn, and then that farm store, as Jeff had pointed out, the tiny little building in between that is full of all kinds of good stuff that the girls have put in there to share with people and bring them out to the farm. And so we have a few minutes left before our time is up on this virtual tour. Other questions from our audience? Yes, ma'am, in the brown sweater. The question is, do you raise your heifers?
All our heifers are raised off-site. We supply the feed for our own heifers, so they're housed off-site. We rent the place, in essence, and take our own feed. The 2 of them are like 12 minutes away, and then our baby calves are 10 minutes away.
And yes, sir.
So are some of your cows Angus cows when they're born, and some are Holsteins? So, and what's your turnover? Have you varied them every year?
All right, so question is regarding turnover and also beef on dairy breeding.
Yep, so our offspring is Holstein heifer calves or browns. We do have some brown Swiss. And then the Angus calves, we breed about 40% of our herd to Angus semen right now. And when they're born, either we sell them as day olds to a different company, or we put them in the general population and raise them out and put them for the farm store.
What's your turnover for, you have 1,200 cows, how much actual turnover?
We normally run around about a 30%.
All right, and we have time for probably, oh yes, ma'am, there.
We have about 35 full-time employees, and then we have a lot of part-time and seasonal help as well. So there's like 18 people in the barn, and then the rest work in the shop or on the crop side of the farm.
Excellent. Other questions from our audience? Yes, sir, in the blue.
Just a question on how you're incorporating the cover crops. Does that end up being part of your feed ration? Is that just another enterprise that you're harvesting the cover crop and selling it? Or is it terminated with a herbicide before it goes to seed? Just wondering how you're utilizing them.
So question is how you're incorporating and utilizing cover crops.
Yep, so how much do you plant into, how much do you harvest? So we usually plant about like 2,400 acres of corn, and that we always plant into rye. And in the springtime, we will either let that rye terminate and we plant green into it, or we harvest about 300 to 400 acres and we feed that forage to our dry cows and our heifers. And we also grow rye seed. So we sell rye seed to other local farmers.
Excellent. And answer your question? Thank you. And we have just a few minutes here before our time is up on this virtual tour of Woldt Farms. And I'd like to just use these last few minutes to turn the mic over to Polly and just give you an opportunity, Polly, to share a little bit more about the work you do with Complete Management Consulting. But before we get into that, when this opportunity was requested of you from World Dairy Expo to nominate a farm that you worked with for this virtual tour, why did Woldt's rise to the top of your list?
Well, the reason I really wanted them to be a part of this is I've known them a long time. They've come from a small dairy, raised one heck of a awesome family. I think the girls are a big part of the dairy, and it's pretty cool to see where they've come. I remember in the early 90s I was working for an AI company, and I started breeding cows there, and I met Daryl and Amy, and just a smaller herd, and now they're milking 1,650 cows, and it looks like they're going to have opportunities to keep on expanding, and they're just doing a great job of what they're doing. And when we started working with them, they didn't need a lot of different things. We noticed what they needed was just some small changes. It wasn't like they needed a complete overhaul, and we do get called into a lot of dairies that need that complete overhaul. But this one just needed a few tweaks and getting them set up in the right direction. I think that was, I think just what we've been able to do there together, I think it's a great story to tell, and I think it's something that can be done on a lot of dairies. So I do think one of the things we're really known for is helping dairies that are in crisis mode, and we're not really known for helping dairies that are doing really good already. And I think that's something that needs to be told a little bit more, that we are not just a crisis management consulting firm. We do help dairies that are doing well and get them to the next level.
Yeah, and that ongoing support looks like an entire team that you've had built out. And Polly, maybe just take a moment to walk through each of those team members and what their role is, including one that's up on the screen that we haven't talked about as well with Rachel.
So yeah, we do a lot of things. Rachel there on the right, she does all my financial stuff. So she does my cash flows for me. So she'll dig into the financials and show me exactly, where a dairy may be bleeding. So then I can look at that and then send that off to Scott, who does a lot of my work hands-on the dairies. So he'll spend time with Jeff, and he travels all over the Midwest right now, and he's doing a lot of stuff virtually with dairies, throughout the U.S. But he's my expert on the management side of things, so he can look at what's going on. When Rachel hands him the financial stuff, he can see, hey, labor's too high, or feed's too high, or whatever those burning issues are, or maybe you're not getting enough production. And then he's able to dive into that and show people how to get that corrected. And then I also have Amanda Stoutinger on staff. She's here with us today. Amanda came on with me back in spring, and she's doing all my nutrition stuff. When we get onto dairies, especially some of these dairies that are in crisis mode, we find out, obviously feed being their number one expense, I needed somebody that I could have on staff that could dive into these rations and look at how we can live without some of that higher expense. What can we cut out of that? And she's been doing a great job at looking at those diets and being able to take out some of the things, just so, when we had $15 milk last year, a lot of dairies were struggling, and she was able to dig into that and really cut some costs on that, but yet keep production up.
Excellent. And well, on that note, it is exactly 11 a.m. We have completed our hour. And so for those that are interested in learning more about what Polly does for farms like Woldt's, that I call this the good to great. And you can see how they have raised their own level of success at Woldt Farms through this partnership, as well as some of the other services that Polly mentioned he offered. There's his contact up there. Polly will be around for a little bit to answer questions that you might have. Jeff is doing an excellent job now that he knows how to use the pointer, so thank you for that. But above all, a big thank you, and join me in doing that for the Woldt family, for showcasing their farm, opening up their door, and telling their story today. And please, for World Dairy Expo purposes, to take that evaluation form you were handed when you came through the door and make sure you drop it off in the box on your way out. And thank you for joining us today.